giơ tay xoa đều, đừng nên cho tay lên mặt mũi miệng, và hạn chế đi ra nơi đông người để lùi virus corona. Luôn nâng cao sức khỏe và vệ sinh không gian xung quanh mình, cùng nâng cao ý thức của xã hội để lùi virus corona.
Yay, welcome, hello from Vietnam, home of the world's catchiest COVID ditty, I think. Hello, I'm Karen and this is May. Just a quick note before we start, at the end we'll share a Google document and that'll have all the resources that we'll mention in this session. And we'll also add, it's a space where we can also add some ideas and share so we can continue the conversation after today's session. Just a flag as we start, the title is A Journey into Technology Transformed Wellbeing, and it is very much a journey. So we're learning and tweaking as we go, and we're looking forward to hearing some feedback from the people here today. So feel free to make any introductions in the chat if you like. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself and May and our context. So we both work at the School of English and University Pathways at RMIT University Vietnam. And if you see SEUP or SEUP acronym, that's what we're talking about. In SEUP, we have around 135 staff in total. 80% of those staff are from overseas. In terms of tech, we use Canvas as our LMS, and we have been using Collaborate Ultra as the teaching platform. We're in the process of transitioning from Google to Office 365. And just to give you some context about where we were before COVID, we had just started to play with Microsoft Teams and on a really small scale at the end of 2019. I'm Karen. My background is in marketing and teaching and management. Not health or well-being or psychology, but I was very lucky in 2013 to start working in Nauru, and that was to manage welfare programs in the offshore detention center for asylum seekers, and I was there for nearly 3 years. And during that time, I learned a lot about managing my own well-being and about managing staff well-being in kind of crisis contexts. And that learning's been really invaluable during COVID. With regards to tech, I'm not especially confident, probably not an early adopter, but I am passionate about connection and about purpose.
Hello, I'm May. I'm a senior educator in SEUP, so coming at this very much from a teacher's perspective. My background is in education, but I did study holistic health as part of my bachelor's degree. Before I came to RMIT, I worked in several flipped learning contexts, so EdTech is definitely a passion. And before Jared's presentation, I would have said I was very confident, but there was several levels above my competency. I got involved in this project when a teacher-led initiative that I started combined with one that Karen was working with the leadership team.
Lovely. So this is a little, what do you call it, May? Is it an infographic timeline or something? Just giving you a bit of a context for Vietnam. So as you can see, everything started a little bit earlier here. So all classes were suspended on the 3rd of February, and that was essentially when we all came back from the Lunar New Year break. Within 4 weeks, we welcomed around 1,000 students into online classrooms. So that was a really, really intense period of work for everybody involved. And at that very same time, there was kind of this uncertainty about how the virus was spreading in other countries, and also looking at whether borders would be closing. So if you just think back to the fact that 80% of our team are from overseas, clearly that starts to have an impact on people's well-being. There was clearly a need for an institutional well-being response. And that was because of this kind of uncertainty, the intensity of the work and the workload, and then the physical distancing to boot. So we had to look at how we could have kind of cognitive and emotional supports in place. With regards to now, so face-to-face classes have pretty much all resumed now in Vietnam, and we're in what we are terming the recovery phase. And hopefully we'll stay there and keep recovering. But there's still this lingering uncertainty, and especially when we think that a lot of our staff have family overseas, and when we also see colleagues in Melbourne go back so quickly back into lockdown. So we'd love to hear while we're chatting away, we'd love for you to share with each other and with us what your biggest challenges have been in terms of well-being in this time. So from a management perspective, for us, it was really this kind of dealing with this rapidly changing and then escalating situation. And now it's this lingering uncertainty. So how do you keep to support people through that ongoing period? It's been a long time. We were really fortunate at the university because we have guidance from a crisis management intervention team. We also have a HR department. And I know a lot of small schools don't have those facilities, so those other services. So we're very lucky. But everything was changing so quickly and evolving so quickly that it was basically all hands on decks in all of the schools to kind of formulate the response and support our colleagues. And I think the biggest challenge from a management perspective was how could we be sure that people were okay? Like, it's really challenging enough in a face-to-face environment, but then we have this amplified need, amplified responsibility and challenge when everybody's working remotely. So how could we respond to that?
From the teacher's perspective, we went from standing up, teaching kind of normal lessons, to sitting all day for our lessons, for our meetings. So there were kind of those initial health concerns and other physical concerns. Initially, we were also pretty worried about our jobs. We weren't sure necessarily how long we were going to stay teaching. And then, as I'm sure all of you have or are experiencing, the just regular isolation and anxiety related to lockdown, having families abroad, like Karen mentioned, and also the fear of COVID-19 itself. It looks like there's quite a lot of the same ideas happening in the chat, just having a look there. Hopefully, these next few slides will give you some ideas about how to manage.
Zoom fatigue is an interesting one, isn't it? Because actually it comes to the point here, the first one, it's when we went off to research what a culture of care looked like. Of course, we started watching webinars galore, which was fantastic, because thank you English Australia, thank you IA TEFL, Sarah Mercer, Tammy Gregerson, all those people that shared so willingly. But it just started to get a bit tiring because it's so many webinars you want to watch and so much time online. But we're immensely grateful. I think as an industry, we've really shown our strengths and how we've supported each other at this time. So we went away, we started to research, we started to look at what a culture of care looked like, and I think this is what Sandra Pitronacci, if she's here, she talked about a culture of compassion in a recent IA TEFL webinar, so similar vein. And we started to look at the research, we started to read, we started to watch lots of webinars, and that led us to formulate, I guess, a more holistic approach to well-being, looking at how we could bring together health and well-being, community, staff engagement, bring all of those things together, and then bring all of those things together somehow online, because we were suddenly technology dependent. So at the end of 2019, we really had just started to play with Teams, and myself included, were like, oh, it's too much. I've got so many emails, not another platform. So we were really in that kind of nascent stage of exploring, the functionality of Microsoft. But of course, teaching online and then working 100% online resulted in a kind of really rapid and organic upskilling in Microsoft Teams and in Collaborate Ultra, and that really opened up a whole new range of opportunity for us to facilitate remote communication and support well-being. So why, just looking at number 3, why did we, why did we want to shift from kind of top-down well-being to omnidirectional? I think, and I'm sure any managers, leaders here would agree that it's probably quite naive to expect a management team, and often a small management team, to have all the answers in this kind of situation. Nobody has all the answers. And we also were thinking around whether people always want to talk to a manager. Sometimes people connect better with different people in different campuses or different spaces outside their team, with their peers. So we were looking at where peer support could play a role, and then how we could kind of harness this technology to foster that engagement and the positive relationships, how we could bring together teams and roles and campuses. Sorry, I should have said we have 3 campuses, one in Ho Chi Minh, one in Da Nang, and one in Hanoi. And how we could ensure there was enough support in place and make sure everyone was okay. So the research took us to the PERMA framework, looking at positive psychology, really. And we started to unpack what this would look like in the SEUP context. So starting at the top with the P, we started to understand that positive emotions not only about joy and pride, but it's also about things like reducing unnecessary stress. So how could we do that? Improving staff consultation, looking at more transparency in decision making. How could we streamline procedures? And a big one, how could we communicate more effectively to reduce the burden, not increase the burden?
In terms of the E for engagement, like Karen said, it's all about streamlining procedures. So making sure people are engaged as much as possible in absorbing and enjoyable classes and reducing that less valued work. For the R, relationships, we really wanted to focus on or PERMA focuses on fostering positive social connections. And for us, that meant across campuses and also across teams from professional staff, teaching and leadership.
And we looked at meaning. So I guess these are the kind of times where you start to think about your life and meaning anyway. So making sense of our lives. Why did we choose to work in education? And what does that mean now? What does that mean in this period? And just personally, this project gave me a lot of meaning during lockdown. It was really important for me. And last but not for both of us, and last but not least, looking at accomplishment and agency. So thinking about how we could empower people in the way that they work and manage their work, and how we could recognize and reward achievements. So I'm going to touch on the management response before May gets to the really jazzy tech bits. Here you can see on this side, we've got a Benestar, it's called here. This is our online employee assistance program, which is also people can connect by telephone. And the university extended and promoted this across all the campuses to all the staff so that people had access to coaching and counselling by live chat through the app. There's not typically like a high level of awareness of adoption of employee assistance programs in education, but it's something we're looking at, and we're looking at the moment as to how we can encourage people to engage with this service. If we think back about the positive is about how we can streamline, how we can make things more accessible. So we're looking at how we can screencast instructions to make it easier for people to access the service. May touched on, job security, which of course is the primary concern for people as well. And we looked at how we could use technology to employ our hourly contracted staff. And we trained and employed people as online support moderators. And that basically meant that people could work from anywhere in the world, which was awesome. So we had some people working from overseas to moderate our classes. We had people in Da Nang supporting teachers in Saigon and Hanoi. And that has actually also had that side effect of fostering some really nice, positive and meaningful relationships. That's a kind of side effect, which is great. We also looked at how we could facilitate leave in extenuating circumstances. So how we could be empathetic and how we could review as a committee individual cases. So for fair decision making, good old Google Docs, thank you very much. And in fact, we've managed to support 7 educators to work from overseas, which is awesome. So we've got people working in the US, Canada, and Australia. It's great. We also had a check-in system. So we used technology to check in with our staff. So we used Teams quite a lot for that. Speaking for myself, I had my morning GIF or GIF, however you say it, competition. We like one-upmanship in the old GIFs. We had lots of fun there. We had Friday night drinks where we'd meet and we'd have a challenge, like a crazy hat challenge, or what else do we do? A masterpiece challenge. So we were connecting on a regular basis. And we also had management wellbeing check-ins. So quite distinct from kind of performance check-ins, if you like, very distinct. And we very much, Jared talked about those paralinguistic cues, right? So we very much encouraged the use of videos so that we could see people and check people were okay. So yeah, I guess the biggest challenge was how to manage that kind of delicate balance of leadership and intimacy. So an interesting time for managers for sure.
So in addition to the top-down management response Karen just outlined, our goal was to establish a community of interest, which was obviously online. We wanted to make sure that it was inclusive and interactive as well as omnidirectional, but also that it utilized this idea of connectivism, or one of the features of 21st century learning and teaching, where learning, or maybe even support, can happen over a social network. And most importantly, we wanted it just to be a beginning. We wanted this community of interest to be something that would maintain through our return to campus and hopefully much longer. So one of the first things we did was establish a well-being working group. That's us there. This is made up of management, senior educators, and professional staff from all of our 3 campuses. We meet twice a month on Microsoft Teams, as pictured, to organize initiatives that I will describe now. Again, we were online, so we needed to choose a platform. We were working between 2. We were using Microsoft Teams, as Karen mentioned, a lot, but Yammer was also available to us. Teams, if you're not familiar, is just a messaging and meeting platform that also has teaching and project management functionality. And we use this pretty constantly at RMIT. We ultimately chose Yammer so that there would be a little bit of a separation from Wellbeing and the daily missives from your teams, for the analytic features, which I'll touch on a bit later, and also to make sure that Wellbeing could be kind of a conscious choice. People would have to leave the normal system to go seek it out. The way that we did it is Karen and I worked to curate some initial content and then to recruit some early adopters who posted and hashtagged kind of as a model for how we hoped people would interact with the platform. And then we launched it to the whole community of 150-ish teachers. And this is what it looks like. I'll share a link to this video if you're having any connection issues. It's just about 1 minute, so if you have a connection issue, come back.
Here is a little sneak peek of our SEUP Wellbeing community on Yammer. A quick look at some of the content. You can see our community guidelines here on the right, and just below that we have some related groups within the wider RMIT Yammer community. We've organized our content into hashtags. This is a quick look at the Wellbeing hashtag. You can see it's everything from headache tips to meditation, exercise recommendations, breathing techniques. We've had quite a lot of variety there. We've also done some really fun staff engagement activities. During lockdown, we had a masterpiece challenge mirroring that viral challenge on social media, and also a really successful online trivia night that we ran on Collaborate Ultra. One of our most popular initiatives has been this Go Local campaign, where we recommend local businesses near campuses. Some of our most popular posts have been things like this, asking about how we're feeling and making recommendations that kind of mirror the staff room chats we would have been having. To use Yammer, an update is just like a kind of normal social media post. We have questions and polls and announcements as well. Announcements, you write the general info at the top and then more specific details at the bottom. And then one exciting one is praise. You can choose someone or a group of people to praise. Karen's done one here. And then just say what they've done. Adding a topic is the same as adding a hashtag. So I'll just tag it with our Wellbeing community.
Ooh. So as you can see, based on a little screen grab of our analytics here, 113 out of about 150 people have engaged on some level with our Yammer. So we're having quite a good result from it so far. There are, however, some things to note or consider about Yammer. There was some initial aversion because it just feels like another social media platform. So that took a little bit of coaxing for some specific people. There's also RMIT Melbourne is doing a similar project, and they've moved it from Yammer to Teams, mostly for ease of use and to hold meetings, but they did cite some privacy concerns as well, which we are keeping an active eye on.
Yeah, so we'd love to hear, yeah, oh, was it me or you? Love to hear how you're using technology. If you want to share with your partners, with the people here today. Share with your partners. Like I'm back in the classroom. Together, together. Any sharing is very welcome. Might just crack on. Here's an example of the Wellbeing group. I've pulled together a calendar for each location. Each location's got its own different interests and dynamics. This is an example from Da Nang. And you see that every month we try to have something which is well-being, engagement, or health, wellness, health, engagement related. And that there's two reasons for the calendar. One is to promote that culture of care and participation, but it's also to hold us to account. And I think we'll share that at the end, right, May? We share the calendar?
Definitely. Yeah, it's on our shared doc.
Yeah, cool. Really exciting, I think, is that we now have well-being kind of embedded into our professional learning program. So this was the first time that we included well-being sessions in the professional learning. We ran 2 sessions in May, very much influenced by the webinars from Sarah Mercer, I think the SMART teacher, SMART for well-being, not objective setting. And we ran those 2 sessions. We ran those through Collaborate Ultra. And then people from Hanoi, Da Nang and Saigon could join, and also from Melbourne. So we had people from all campuses join those sessions, and people could also join anonymously, which I felt was really important. In case people if people felt a bit vulnerable sharing. So that has also led to us having a wellbeing section on our professional learning hub. So that's great news. And as we said, let's hope it continues. Yes, so as I said, it is a journey. So where are we now and what next? So we're continuing to look at how we can streamline processes. We're also working on how we can continue to facilitate flexible working and having quite open discussions. And we're just waiting back for the results. The university ran a Reconnect survey, basically asking everybody in the university how supported they felt during the kind of lockdown or remote working period, and how supported they felt transitioning back to the workplace. So we'll be looking at those results very carefully and seeing how they inform the next stages of this journey.
In terms of engagement, we're continuing, like Karen said, with those check-ins and surveys. But for the first time, we have this wellbeing working group. And so we are involved in planning staff engagement and community engagement and wellbeing activities, including new specialist role that combine quite a lot of those things into one, which allows just for prioritization of this wellbeing work. In terms of relationships, we're really hoping to sustain the online connection through our Yammer chats, team channels, online and face-to-face opportunities to present across campuses. And we're trying to work on identifying what people value using analytics and also just having discussions with people, and just keeping the focus on blending tech and face-to-face to really make the most of those relationships.
I'm just laughing at someone in the chat. Someone suggested, I've just lost it now, that we do a TikTok dance.
The TikTok dances, I saw that too.
Yes. On Zoom. Just on to meaning, probably something I should have mentioned earlier was twice a year at RMIT, we run a teacher kind of outreach, teacher training seminar series called Teach Talks. And we have one in each campus, and we have a morning of seminars and workshops, and teachers from the public school system and language centres are invited. Clearly we couldn't do that during the COVID period. So we actually took that online, and we changed the content and the focus to helping people to adapt to teaching online, because a lot of the teachers didn't have a lot of support here. So the really exciting thing is that we're going to continue to do that online Teacher Talks platform, and we're going to look at how we then extend that opportunity, if you like, to the provinces, to teachers in the provinces, so to people that don't live in Hanoi, Da Nang or Ho Chi Minh. So that's really excited. So I think the technology is also really opening up what else can we do in community engagement. It's very exciting. And last but not least, always important, accomplishment and agency. So we are launching the new Learning and Teaching Awards very soon, I think this month. But we're also exploring, as May touched upon, we're exploring how Yammer gives people a voice and kind of visibility of what people value. People vote with their feet, so to speak. So they vote with what they like, they vote with what they comment on. And so we've got some reasonable analytics to have a look at that. And we're kind of looking at how we can use that more to engage people. So we're going to be polling people to look at what initiatives we do next. Like we had last year, we had a step challenge. This year, what will we have? We're going to poll people with some options. We're also looking at how we can extend that and what people value and what people would like to see there. But one of the things I noticed actually as we were going through, and one of the comments was just going back to accomplishment. Accomplishment isn't, of course, always top down. It's also about how we recognize each other and our peers. And one of the things we've really noticed is a lot more praise. So using praise buttons or whatever they are in Teams, and also the use of emojis. Like the way that people are interacting seems to be a lot kinder, and recognizing people and recognizing their contributions through the use of emojis through Teams. And that's awesome. I feel like I should be walking around with a big heart or a big thumbs up all the time when I walk past people. So that's a really nice part of technology-enabled recognition. Lovely.
Love that heart.
Love and heart.
I think we don't have
I can't even do it. I can't do it. No. So I guess we were going to ask you to share, but we're running a bit short of time.
You can share this on the living doc that we'll share, and we'll share it now.
Will you pop that into the chat,
Yes.
will you, May? Yep.
There it is.
So that's a Google Doc with the links, and also space for people to add their ideas and share. So that's a living doc, and we can see where we all go from there, I guess. So thank you. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks.
Any questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, May and Karen. It was just some fantastic ideas there. There are a few questions. The first one is about reluctant teachers. How did you coax the more reluctant teachers, and how could casual teachers be encouraged to participate?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think collective sense of, it depends what we're talking about. I mean, I guess if we're talking about teams, with my team, the morning gift thing, some people are not into that, but actually it's quite interesting to watch the dynamics between the team members. I didn't really need to, I could just start the ball rolling, and then each other is kind of a bit of banter and a bit of teasing and a bit of kind of fun together, and it just kind of gathered its own momentum. The trivia quiz blew us away, right? How many people came to the trivia quiz that we did not expect?
Yeah,
and I can't take any responsibility to that. I didn't run it. Over 50. Yeah. But
on our campus, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
On our campus, my experience was just talking about it a lot, especially that Benestar app, just saying like, oh, I've used this thing. We're all feeling really stressed at some points, and like just talking about what worked for me. My campus is, Karen and I both have quite small campuses, and so just that face-to-face, it's not online, but it did really, really increase engagement.
Yeah, I think it's a blended approach, isn't it? Like there's no one size fits all, and that's the whole point about having all these different touch points, right? It's about having the buddy groups. So, I would speak to somebody in my team and say, oh, could you check in on such and such? Perhaps you guys want to get together once a week and have a bit of a chat. And it was got kind of like buddy communities. And then the Yammer, I was amazed. Like some people shared really openly in the Yammer space that it really surprised me.
Me too.
And it was really nice. People were really open. So I think some conversations are happening now that would never have happened. And really there was no distinction between casual or full-time teachers. Did you think there was a distinction, May, or?
Not really, no.
No.
Okay, that's probably about all the time we have for questions. There was one very quick one. Is there a student version?
A student version of the Yammer?
Of this initiative, yeah, the Yammer.
Student Life is doing a lot of work. We're a little bit separate from them in this, but I think it would be a really interesting thing to explore how we could combine those, definitely.
Okay, thank you. There are quite a few more questions in the Q&A for you, so May and Karen, if you don't mind going in there and answering them, that would be amazing.
Sure.
Great, thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you. I've got to work out how to do that now.